Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Infuse Your Future podcast, where we bring together people and ideas who are making the world a better place. I'm your host, Dr. C. Today's guest is Amy Wilson. She's the nutrition coach pharmacist. So, hi, Amy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am great. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do in the world, and how you infuse the future?
Oh, well, I will say I always say I'm like a triple threat. I am a board certified geriatric pharmacist. So I am a practicing pharmacist that works in long-term care. So that's nursing homes. I have been a fitness professional since I was 17. And just to give you an idea how long ago that was, it was leg warmers and leotards is when I started, and big hair, like big hair. And I've been nutrition coaching for probably 15 plus years, but the platform that I use now, which is called Fast Way to Fat Loss, I've been coaching that for the past 3 years. And so I put all together and it's my business that's called the Nutrition Coach Pharmacist because I always say I am a pharmacist who would prefer that we get you off medication or that we prevent disease in the first place, that you don't have to be on that medication because medication is it's a treatment, it's not a cure. And if we can make your future better, let's do it.
I agree. I love all of that. I love that you're a pharmacist because it's so true. Everybody today, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people, they're looking for the fast cure. They're looking for the pill that's gonna
Shot.
take care of everything.
We're in America. There's a pill, there's a shot, there's something for everything, but we forget with medication comes responsibility. With medication comes side effects. And we don't think about the side effects until it's too late, or we have some negative outcomes, or we have to be on more medications because of those side effects. And it's just not something that we think about. We just think, oh, there has to be a better way. There has to be something that's easier. Okay, I'm just going to take this pill and see if it helps. Instead of maybe we can go back to some basics. It's going to take some work. It does take some work, but understanding that that work is going to be worth it in the long term.
Right. I know a lot of people that come into our office, they're on 10, 15, 20 different medications.
That's pretty good. I mean, I hate to say that, but you're like, wait, that's a lot. I get people coming into the nursing homes, and you would think that they're probably in their 80s or 90s, but what I'm seeing is 40s and 50s a lot. And they're coming in on 30 plus medications because, like I said, when you're on one medication, you have to probably be on another medication for a different issue, and then those cause side effects. So you're on medication for those side effects, and then you're on something else. And it's just a horrible negative cascade effect that I don't think anybody goes into the doctor's office and expects, I guess well, I will say this. You go in the doctor's office, you expect a prescription. If you don't get a prescription, you think that it was a waste of time. They didn't do anything for you. And I can't imagine, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that the ranting and raving. They didn't even give me a prescription. But understanding that that prescription starts that negative cascade. And even an antibiotic can cause issues on down the line. So being responsible, if you're going to take medication, being responsible for also understanding that if it's a disease state, there is a good chance that you can help that disease state with nutrition and exercise. And maybe you'll be on the lowest effective dose, not the highest. And maybe eventually we could possibly get you off that medication, which would be the end all be all goal.
And that's one thing that I love about diabetes is it's you can completely get off of all your medications with the right lifestyle changes if you stick to it.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you see you see what happens with somebody on diabetes who is diabetic, who doesn't control their blood sugar, especially because it's we see it with foot related problems. And it's scary if you're not controlling your blood sugar, if you're not using nutrition. And I don't mean giving up sugar. That's what everybody's like, oh, but you have to give up sugar. It's not just that. It's actually ultra processed foods. It's how you're moving your body. The bad part about diabetes is one, it's a long disease, and what happens to your circulation? It's it decreases. What happens to your ability to heal? It decreases. And then unfortunately, then something happens, you stub your toe, you get a hangnail that gets infected, and then it goes into the bone. And there's this, once again, the cascade effect of now you may have to get a toe removed. Maybe it's a foot removed. And then it goes down the line. Well, now the kidneys don't function. Now your eyesight gets worse. Your skin, it gets worse. And all of that stuff we can almost put a halt to and reverse if you want to. That's the biggest thing right there. If you want to.
Yeah, if you want to, and then take action.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, all of these medications were derived from plants. So instead of eating the vegetables and fruits and things that the medications came from, we've just been kind of as a society tunneled into getting the medication instead of learning about the nutrition of the plants and how they can help you and
Yeah.
making healthy food that tastes good using the plants.
Yeah, plants and hormones. So with like what we'll probably end up talking about Wegovy, semaglutide, Ozempic is a GLP-1, which is a gut hormone. Well, you can increase that GLP-1 gut hormone just by eating real food, just by getting rid of ultra processed foods and increasing your protein. So you can do that naturally. Just with diabetes and your blood sugar, well, if you're getting fiber, if you are focusing on protein, getting good fats, and yes, carbohydrates are not the enemy. Yes, you can eat carbohydrates with being diabetic, but there's a way to do it so that you balance your blood sugar. If you're just eating constantly carbohydrates, yeah, that's not a good thing. That's going to spike your blood sugar and that's going to cause issues. But if you pair it with some protein and a fat, you're going to stabilize your blood sugar and you're not going to have those high spikes and then those crashing lows to where you're constantly hungry or tired or, hey, guess what? Menopause hits and now you have brain fog and all these other issues, hot flashes that are exasperated by those blood sugar spikes. When we can balance the blood sugar, well, guess what happens then? You decrease your A1C, which is a marker for diabetes and prediabetes. You decrease your fasting glucose. Well, you got the fiber, you're helping your cholesterol and you're helping your heart at the same time. So all these things that we're doing with nutrition, now let's pair that with walking every day. Maybe you start picking up some weights. Well, you got weights, that's going to help with your blood sugar. That's going to help with your insulin resistance. It's going to help increase insulin sensitivity. And you don't have to do it for hours a day. I think that's the biggest probably myth that people think that they have to work out hours a day when really, especially if you're menopause, that increases our cortisol, which is what we don't want. And if you're not eating enough in the first place, that doesn't help you. So, what we need to start looking at in our future is not only balancing blood sugar, but also keeping and building muscle, because that is what's going to help us, I would say, age backwards, feel better, look better. It's also going to keep you out of my nursing homes.
And that's important.
Yeah, that's not a place that you want to live. It's not living. It really isn't.
It really isn't. And another good point that you brought up is that you don't have to go to the gym 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a day and turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight. I mean, exercise can be very simple. Exercise is just activity, it's just movement. So if exercise makes your brain hurt, just think of it as movement.
Yeah. And when I coach my clients, it's 30 minutes every day. 30 minutes. And on the days I don't feel like doing it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do it for 5 minutes. And more than likely after 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, 25 more minutes is not going to be that big of a deal. And it's amazing in how much better you feel after those 30 minutes and clear, better mood, got those endorphins going. And once again, we're helping all those things that we can prevent in the future. And like you said, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I love when people say, but I don't want to get big. I don't want to get big. Ladies, you're not going to do it. That's not going to happen. We do not have those hormones. It is not going to be there. It's like, but. Okay, you show me who's big, and I'm going to tell you what they were taking in order to get that way. And it wasn't real food. They were also using some medications that enhance some things. Even Arnold did.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very big point, I
Yeah.
think. And it's my understanding that it's not just diabetes we're talking about, it's depression,
Mm.
anxiety,
Mhm.
not just physical issues, but emotional and mental issues as well.
Absolutely. So what think about, we don't think about what we ingest and what it does. We don't put those two together. Our body is one big chemical reaction. We either give it really good food, so those chemical reactions go boom, like when you're in your chemistry lab. If anybody remembers organic chemistry, and maybe you're like, what? You want this when you were doing organic chemistry, the whole idea was that you wanted this big, massive amount of product, and that's what you got graded on. And if nothing came out, you were almost in tears. And that's what we want with our body. We want this a massive amount of product, meaning that we want our hormones. We want our neurotransmitters and dopamine and everything else. We want to build muscle. But if we're giving it subpar fuel, it's not going to go boom. It's just going to be like, bleh. And we just don't want that. So when you think about it too, is that we are now understanding nutrition so much more and how it reacts to our bodies and what the chemical reactions are. The other thing that we're understanding a lot more is our gut microbiome. Back in the day, we used to think that all bacteria, for the most part, in our bodies were not a good thing. We would wipe out all the bacteria. Now we realize that there's something about good bacteria and our gut microbiome. And when you eat fiber, when you eat real food, and you're not eating ultra processed food, and let me clarify ultra processed food, that is things that have added chemicals, sugar, it's usually high fructose corn syrup, it's colors, it's additives, it's, lack of a better word, Twinkies and Doritos. A lot of that is because if you think about processed foods, that would be your frozen vegetables, maybe your boar's head turkey meat. Those are okay. It's when you get to pretty much the junk food that really harms your body. And when you wipe out that gut microbiome, when you are not fueling your body with all the good stuff, okay, now we're seeing an increase in anxiety. Now we see an increase in mental issues. I love Jamie Oliver. If anybody knows who Jamie Oliver is, he is a chef in Europe. And he did this experiment with kids at a high school who had behavioral issues, and said, you know what? It comes down to the food. And everybody thought he was ridiculous. What do you mean it comes down to the food? These are kids who have issues. There is no hope for them. They have mental, that's just what it is. He said, no, it's what you're feeding them. And he took over the school's kitchen, took over dietary, and their grades went up, their behaviors went down, the anxiety and depression went down. So there is a direct correlation with what we eat and how we feel.
That's so true, and it's been proven over and over. And I
Mm-hmm.
have, besides patients, just so many friends and family members, even skin issues, right? They would have these strange skin rashes, would go and have biopsies done, and being in the field that you're in, that biopsies are like it's general information. Oh, it's
Yeah.
an inflammatory skin disease. Well, that could be 100 or 500 different things. Inflammatory skin disease, and no real information on how to treat it other than maybe a topical corticosteroid or an oral
Mm-hmm.
corticosteroid. But when they started focusing on a diet where they were eating less of the processed food
Mm-hmm.
and eating the type of foods you were describing, magically their rashes went away and they felt better. Their joint pain went away. I know so many people that could barely move, some even in a wheelchair,
Mhm.
and they changed their diet and everything went away.
A lot of it's the chronic inflammation. And I have several clients who had psoriasis, the plaque psoriasis. And in my coaching the program for the first 6 weeks, we eliminate gluten and dairy because those are two of the biggest inflammatory foods that we eat in the United States, especially gluten, because of how it's how we do our crops here in the United States. It's just we put too much crap on it. And it's not that people have celiac, it's that they're gluten sensitive and just don't know it. So for 6 weeks, taking those out, it's amazing at during those 6 weeks, hot flashes are better. The inflammation goes down, joint pain goes down. My clients with psoriasis, unknown rashes, that goes away. Feeling better, sleeping better, having more energy. And usually we'll bring some of that back after the 6 weeks if they want to. And 9 times out of 10, they don't because they feel so much better. And they're like, you know what? I can still get my carbs, my fiber without some of the products that have gluten in it, and still get calcium and everything else without getting the dairy. And it's not like I said, some people are like, well, you're eliminating a food group, not eliminating a carbs, fat, or protein, just eliminating one source to see if that's causing inflammation. And unfortunately, a lot of times that is what the cause is. And if we can make you feel better, how awesome is that? That's the end result. If you can feel better, so you feel better today, tomorrow, in 20 years, and especially, I mean, rashes are horrible. I don't if it I used to get them all the time before I didn't realize I was actually gluten sensitive. They make you self-conscious, they itch, they hurt, they crack, and it's just not something that you want to live with. And if when it goes away, you're just like, wow, this is what it's like not to have to worry about it anymore.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Itchy skin is awful. Skin
Mhm.
rashes are awful. And I want to add that, what we're talking about is meant to be empowering. I think a lot of people can start to hear all the voices throughout their life of people
Mm.
telling them they're lazy or fat or out of shape. And, it's not about that. We have so much marketing in our community that is made to make you think things are healthy. Maybe you want to speak on that. They're marketing that's actually a lie. When you say something is healthy, I just found out the other day that in a large number of cases, there's actually high fructose corn syrup added to honey. And it's not really honey, it's a honey byproduct or pretend product. And so now, if I go to the store and buy honey, I'm looking at the label to make sure it really is honey and not high fructose corn
Or
syrup.
syrup. Yeah. And so, first of all, let me say skinny's not healthy. And I'm not telling anybody that, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight. I am totally against the scale. I am all for being your healthiest, whatever size that is. And I'm not going to say weight because I think the scale number is BS. Multimedia has done us a very big disservice, and and we hear it right now. And there are so many things food wise. If you go in and you think, oh, but I'm going to get Weight Watchers meals, I'm going to get lean cuisine, and I'm going to healthy choice. Well, guess what? Those are ultra processed. Those have added chemicals, added sugar, everything I said what ultra processed is. I will see something on an end cap, and my favorite example is peanut butter and cheese crackers. Now, I'm going to tell you this girl back in the day loved her peanut butter and cheese crackers. I know better now. It's like that orange is probably not orange is probably not healthy, but it said a good source of protein on it. Oh, no. Yeah, it had 2 grams. I think it has 2 or 3 grams of protein. That's not a good source of protein.
They
But
said they said that an orange was a good source of
no,
protein.
the cheese and crackers, the orange cheese and
Oh, okay,
crackers.
okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So those were a good source of protein. And it's like, no. And that's not healthy either. So it's one of those things that we look at these foods and you're like, but how am I supposed to navigate this? How am I supposed to figure this out? One, that's a great reason to hire a coach. It really is to help you learn. You don't have to use this forever. We're just going to help you get started. If you want to use this forever, great. You don't, let's get you started on the path because there's something called analysis paralysis. Hello, Google. Let me look everything up. And this person here says this person here says this. And I'm always saying the FOMO, it's the shiny object. Oh, let me do this. Let me do that. Let me do this. And now everybody's hearing about Wegovy and Ozempic, and Oprah just came out and said she's using one of them. And so that's going to see everybody going, but it always comes down to getting back to the basics. Our bodies function on real food. Our bodies function on protein, fats, and carbohydrates. The real thing. If it comes from the mother, it comes from the ground, fair game. And we've made real food almost the enemy. If somebody goes out and eats a salad with chicken, someone's like, "Are you on a diet?" But they don't question if you have a bag of Taco Bell. They don't. And we need to get back to the norm that it's okay that if I have a baked potato, chicken, greens, broccoli, real food, and real food doesn't mean just boiled chicken and rice. You can have there's so much you can have that that's the norm. And what I worry about with the GLP-1s is that people are going to take them, and I'm already seeing this, to get skinny because they think that's what's healthy. They're not eating. And I'm calling it old lady syndrome that we're going to see in 5 years. Because if you are not eating, and I get why if anybody's listening to this, like I'm on this. I understand. But what I'm telling you is what you need to do if you're on this or even thinking about it is that you have to get protein. You have to eat. You have to build muscle because this is what's going to happen. You lose your appetite. That's how they work. That's one of the ways they work. If you're not eating, your body needs to function. It's not going for fat. It's going to go for protein. It needs amino acids. It's the quickest source of energy to get sugar. Your body also needs vitamins and minerals. It's going to take it from your bones. And what I am so afraid that we're going to see in the next 5 years is we're going to start seeing a huge increase in osteopenia and osteoporosis. We're going to start seeing an increase in ankle fractures, in, I hate to say femur fractures because of osteoporosis. We're going to start seeing, the rounding of the shoulders, all of that. And then we're going to start seeing increased falls because of sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting. And that's scary. All to be a certain size and not look at health, but looking at that size. And we need to shift our mindset to be like, okay, I want to be strong. I want to be healthy. And will the inches come with that? Absolutely. But it might not be your 16-year-old self. Let's make our 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old self the best that we can do, that is thriving and is strong and not worried so much about being ultra thin.
I love that you said that. It's interesting because I do feel like I have seen an increase in stress fractures lately.
It's interesting
Yeah, so I'm gonna have my eye on that now.
because what we're seeing in the fitness industry, because there are some people who are being proactive and they're getting their body fats taken while they're on this medication. And when I work with people, I'm making sure that they're eating and we're double checking everything. And what we're seeing is that their muscle mass is going down, their body fat is going up. And that is what's called skinny fat. It's not healthy. And that's not what we want. And unfortunately, that is going to put you in my nursing homes. You want to be able to take care of yourself. You want to be able to lift your kids, your grandbabies. For me, it's my fur babies. I want to be able to lift the groceries and bring them in my house. I want to be able to live in my 80s and 90s independently. And when we have to start training for that is now. It's not when we're in our 70s and 80s. It's when we're now before that, so that we can train for our future selves, so that we can live our best life, so that we don't get a diagnosis that says, hey, by the way, you should be doing XYZ. If we start now, we can help prevent some of those diagnoses.
Yeah. And I think it's important to learn as much as you can from as many different sources as you can and just keep an open mind.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are in this situation now because there was the big fad way back, or not even a fad, but people were told you can't have fat. And everything is labeled no fat, no fat, no fat. Yeah, me too.
Hello,
And so
1980s at Snackwells.
right, right. And so everybody's focused on no fat, no fat.
Mhm.
And a lot of science too is trial and error. Like we see a problem, we try to fix it, but that fix is also going to have its pros and cons, and it's weeding out those cons. So it's not like some big conspiracy where everybody's trying to trick you, but we're just learning as we go. And
Well,
I
and
think that's one of the, go ahead.
oh, no, I was going to say, it's like, in the 80s, we went low fat because in the 70s, we were having heart attacks. And the studies at that time pointed to it was because of high trans fat. Okay, so we have the knee jerk reaction that we have to get rid of all the fat. Well, guess what replaced fat? Because you have to have something to replace for flavor. Well, that was sugar. So now we have set ourselves up years later for the diabetes epidemic that we have. And we didn't know a lot of this stuff and how nutrition works with the body, how nutrition works with those chemical reactions, how nutrition works to help the enzymes and the neurotransmitters and the hormones until probably the last, I would say 5 or 6 years that it's really become out the forefront. So like you said, you have to be open to change because a lot of the things that we believed as teenagers has stuck with us, that you have to move more and eat less. That's wrong. But I can't tell you how many clients I get that still believe in, oh my gosh, I'm going to gain weight if I eat all this food. I will tell you the biggest complaint of my clients is that how much they're eating.
Really?
It is because they've been
Sign me up.
under eating. They've been under eating for so long, or they're overfed and undernourished, meaning that they've been eating so much processed food that they're eating all this kind of junk and their body has no nutrition whatsoever. So when they start eating real food, it's crazy the amount that you have to eat. I mean, think about it, a Snickers bar, a candy bar, 250, 300 calories maybe. But if I tell you you have to have that same amount in real food, and I want you to have some vegetables with that and a protein source with that, and maybe some other fat with that, it's a big meal for that amount of energy that it is in a Snickers bar. Now, a Snickers bar is going to keep you satisfied, even though they say long, it doesn't, 15 minutes, maybe, where this meal is going to keep your blood sugar stable. So you're not going to be hungry. You're, what I say is going to be metabolic flexible, taking you from what's called a sugar burner to a fat burner. And that's what you want. And yeah, you're gonna have to eat a lot. And it's crazy on how much you have to eat. I just have texting a client right now. She's like, but I'm so under. And I'm like, okay, we got bananas, we got sweet potatoes. I mean, all this food that she needs to add today because she's under on what she needs to eat. But she's been so used to having that 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, because that's what we were told when that was really slowing our metabolism down in the first place. But we didn't know any better because that is what we are told works. But I'm gonna ask you, I'm like everybody who's on this podcast, has it really? Have you been struggling? Have you been doing yo-yo for years because you get hangry? You binge because you haven't been eating, and then it's this horrible relationship that we have, like you said, mental health. Well, when you're dieting all the time, that for females, that psyche, that feeling we don't have willpower, that everything's out of our control, that we think about food 24/7. We've been set up with that with the multimedia. We've been set up with that with all the lies and I won't say lies because we didn't know any better. It was all the misinformation that we've been fed throughout the years, and to reprogram and to change. And then once you get that aha moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm eating and I'm gaining muscle and losing inches. I don't have hot flashes. I'm sleeping throughout the night. That's huge. And then my clients who's go back from diabetes, pre-diabetes to normal, or one of my clients is no longer on her blood pressure medication. Those are huge milestones, and they're not starving, they're not beating themselves up, and we don't have to worry about willpower because willpower does not exist. It's BS. If you are actually feeding your body, you don't need willpower. And yes, I'm going to tell you right now, you can still have your cookie. You can still enjoy the holidays because life happens. We just need to learn how to manipulate and live life and find that balance, because I think it's really crucial that we find balance and not feel guilty for going to a Christmas party, for having a cookie, for enjoying a cocktail every once in a while. And when you find that balance, it's like a weight has been lifted off of you. And mentally for females, it's huge. It is huge to finally feel successful. And I say, get your mojo back or get you back, and not just waste so much time on thinking about food, thinking about diet, thinking about, oh, I don't know what I'm going to wear because I'm going to look like crap. I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. I'm just going to put something on and just go. And when you start feeling good, once again, a cyclic effects, it's a snowball that is very positive, and the sky's the limit on what you can do. I just love when I start seeing that. It's like the little, ooh.
I know when I am eating a super clean diet and I'm getting adequate exercise, I feel on top of the world. And it's easy to get back into the unhealthy cycle because of the fast-paced lifestyle and everything. But when I'm on it, I feel amazing. And I feel like a superhero because I can do so much in so little time. Whereas when I'm not, when I've eaten heavy processed food, it's like you said, the brain fog,
Mhm.
the joint pain. You don't want to get up. You don't want to do anything. It's a whole different lifestyle.
Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like a time saver. You think about, oh my, how much time it takes to eat healthy, but then you're like, how much time do you get back because of how good you feel, because you're more productive, because you're sleeping better, because you're not having hot flashes that are just coming out of nowhere or waking you up in the middle of the night. And I always think feeling great is priceless. It really, really is. And then the other thing we still have to think about is, what are you doing for that lady who's looking back at you in the mirror, who's 20 years older, who's 25 years older, and she's looking back at you going, she's saying, I really wish you would have? Or is she saying, hey, thanks for taking care of me. We're living our best life. And I'm hoping that she looks back saying, good job. Well done.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Can you talk for a minute about sugar? Because I know there's a lot of confusion out there, especially among people with diabetes, because they're told to avoid sugar, avoid carbohydrates, and fruit is pretty much 100% carbohydrate.
So sugar is not sugar, which means that all sugar is not created equal. Um, there is sugar from fruit, and then there is sugar from high fructose corn syrup. When you have sugar with fiber in its natural state, fruit, blueberries, raspberries, bananas, it is absorbed differently in your system than high fructose corn syrup. And I know you're going to have people who say, no, 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 it still gets absorbed. Yes. Okay. So what happens with carbohydrates in our body is as soon as you take a bite of something, you have a chemical called amylase in your mouth, and that amylase is an enzyme that will break down carbohydrates. So if you take like a saltine cracker, and that saltine cracker, if you keep it in your mouth, it will start to taste sweet because it's breaking down the carbohydrates, and those get absorbed right away. That's why we have issues with blood sugar, is because the carbohydrates going right into the bloodstream. But if you add fiber with that, and then if you do something like pair it with fat and protein and have the fat and protein first, that's going to slow down the blood sugar impact and how quickly it's going to go into your system. I love the glucose goddess. So if anybody follows her on Instagram, she always has some really good tips, and it's all about keeping your blood sugar stable. The problem that we have is that we are such a fast food, want it now society that ultra processed foods will do the same thing as pure sugar. And this may sound disgusting, but ultra processed foods are in their simplest state and they've pretty much been pre-digested for you. So they get digested right in there and they go right into and impacting your blood sugar. Now they're also wiping out your gut microbiome too. So they will cause huge blood sugar spikes. Sugar in a candy bar will also cause a huge blood sugar spike. A banana, if it's ripe because it's going to have more sugar, will also cause a spike. But if you pair that maybe with some peanut butter and some other protein, like maybe some turkey slices, it's not going to impact your blood sugar as much. That's one of the reasons I say work with a coach because they're going to help you. I would say if you can do a protein, a fat, and a carbohydrate every time you eat, you are going to balance your blood sugar for the most part automatically. It's when you just have a carbohydrate by itself that you run the risk of having a blood sugar spike. But our fruit, minerals and vitamins, once again, body's a chemical reaction. We need those. We can't just say, oh, I'm just going to have fat and protein. And I get it. There are some people who keto is good for. There is a certain population, those who have epilepsy, that keto is decent for. For the most of our population, we need fruits and vegetables. We need those vitamins and minerals and that nutrition. We just have to know how to do it, I'll say smartly, but smart, because what happens is most time when I'm working with people, we do something that's called macro tracking, and we also do something called carb cycling. Both those will help you become from a sugar burner to a fat burner. And what happens is when our first week, when we start doing this, I see what happens. Most people don't get enough protein. Most of my clients really have no problem getting the carbohydrates. Or if they've been doing keto, they have no problem getting all their fat in and almost too much fat. Where the problem is balancing and learning how to balance and learning how to get enough protein. And then once you do that, you can build muscle and you can burn fat and you can lose inches. All the things that we want to do and feel better.
Yeah, and I think the key to all of this is balance, like you've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have to cut out everything that you love,
Mm-mm.
and you can also love the natural things.
It, it's always amazing to me when I get a client going, why are blueberries tasting so sweet right now? What's going on? And when you get rid of the chemicals, it's like when I used to, when I was in retail and I would do smoking cessation and help people get off smoking cigarettes. The first week, they start smelling better. By week 4, things they couldn't taste, they're now tasting. It's the same thing when we are so used to chemicals in our food that we don't taste things. And then all of a sudden, when we balance our blood sugar and we start eating real food, blueberries taste like candy. Raspberries taste like candy. And then when you go back to the processed food, you can taste the chemicals. And
For
it's like,
sure.
what is this? It's like I'm guilty because I'm like, man, I used to love this. And it's like, oh no, it's horrible.
It's amazing how sickeningly sweet certain things taste when you cut
Hmm.
them out of your diet for a while, and then you go back to it and you're like, wow, I used to eat or drink this all the time. How did
Huh?
I tolerate that?
Yeah, it's like, oh, give me blueberries any day. I don't want this thing. It doesn't taste right.
So true, so true. So in every one of my episodes, I like to have a call to action. Do you have a call to action for people?
I do. We always say start with baby steps. And the call to action is baby steps because I don't know when this will go out, but I'm going to say January's coming up. And this happens all the time. No matter if it's January 1st, you're like, I'm going to start a program. I'm going to start it. And I'm going to my pantry and I'm going to do a pantry raid. I'm going to get rid of everything that's bad for me and I'm going to throw it out. And I'm going to go to the gym at 5 a.m. every single day. Okay, let's be honest. Maybe that will happen for the first week, maybe the second. What we see usually around January 14th, 15th, it's a huge nosedive. By the 21st, peace out. It's been real. If you would have just started with one thing, maybe instead of having a cup of coffee first thing in the morning, you have a glass of water. One
A
thing.
great habit to develop.
You're adding one thing, not taking away, you're adding something. And then when that becomes second nature, you're like, okay, well, maybe instead of a bagel, a croissant, I'm going to look at having protein, fats, and a carbohydrate. So maybe it's some eggs with bananas and maybe oatmeal or something, and doing that and just changing one thing. And then that one thing will become two, two will become three. But when you do it in baby steps, it's so much more doable. And I highly recommend, I always say, I highly recommend Atomic Habits. If you have not read Atomic Habits, it is a great book because it kind of takes everything back to the basics and how you can do one thing. And that one thing becomes better every day and you increase by 1% every day. And by the end of the year, look at all the new habits and new lifestyle that you have accomplished. And that's why when I coach my clients, we go from baby steps because change is hard and to stick with it is even harder. So that would be my takeaway is baby steps and just do one thing. So if you're going to do anything, let's just start with a glass of water in the morning.
That is super easy. I think everybody can do that. Well, is there anything else you would like to tell people about?
If they want to find me, they can go on to my website, amykwilson.com. And I know a lot of people are like, okay, how do I get healthy? How do I do this? Well, if you want a 5 day, I always say it's a fat loss blueprint, you can hit me up on my Instagram at the nutrition coach pharmacist. And the code word is Dr. C. So tell me, Dr. C. I will send you that blueprint. And then I will also give you two recipes that I only give usually to my paying clients. One is the absolute best chili recipe out there. It's what Dave Thomas used for the Wendy's recipe, but I have it for the Instapot. You can also do it in the crock pot, but it's also healthy. And it's amazing. And guess what? Protein, fat, and carbohydrates all in that.
That sounds delicious. I
It's really
love
good. And
chili.
it's easy. That's the best thing about it. It's so easy.
I love easy. I love chili.
Especially this time of year. So yeah, go to the nutrition coach pharmacist and just put Dr. C and I will send that to you.
And what is it like to work with you? Like when
Oh,
somebody signs up to work
yeah.
with you, what does that look like?
So you get me. It's I will say you get me. There's a lot of people who use VAs or virtual assistants or client helpers. You get me. It starts with a 6 week program. The first week we just kind of would call prep week. It's just to get you in the mindset and be like, okay, well, let's take down the basics. Let's start getting rid of some of the process. Let's start bringing in the real food. The second week, we look at what's something called carb cycling because what that does is it's not keto. I can tell you that right now. It's not keto, but we'll manipulate carbs 2 days a week so that you become what's called metabolic flexible. And that will change you into a sugar burner. And that's someone who's probably hungry every 2 hours, into a fat burner, which is what we want. And then we're also going to be looking at increasing your muscle mass by doing 30-minute workouts that you will get in your little app. We have an app that comes with it every single day. So in that 6 weeks, we get better every day. In that 6 weeks, you are talking to me. You're in a Facebook group. You might be texting me. I say my best clients are the ones who just have all the questions and like, I'm going to be your biggest pain. No, you're not. That means you are engaged. That means you want to change. And that means that you are going to be successful because you are invested. So yeah, you have my cell phone number. You do. And we'll be texting back and forth or even on the phone or Zoom. What I always say, I meet people where they need to be met because everybody is different. Everybody's an individual. And your nutrition needs are individual too. And that's why the glamour magazines and the Cosmo and the Women's World and all these things don't work for the long haul because they're for a quick fix. That doesn't work. And if you don't like salmon, you're not going to eat salmon. So we have to make it work for you.
And I think it is important to work with a coach because I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and think, you know what, I can do all this myself. It's really easy. And you can do it yourself,
Mhm.
but you've probably been doing it yourself for 10, 15, 20 years and maybe succeeded once or twice, or maybe even 10 times. But what working with a coach does is it gets you to the end result faster, funner, and more quickly, and
And,
helps you develop the habits that are going to make this the last time that you have to go through this.
and I will tell you the reason I coached this program is because I needed a coach. I needed something because everything that I was doing stopped working and it was frustrating. I kind of threw a Hail Mary pass. I watched some friends do this program and I'm like, wait a minute, they look amazing and they felt amazing and their menopause symptoms were getting less. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to work, but let me try it. And it worked. I lost 30 inches and have kept it off for almost 4 years now.
Wow.
It was January 2020 when I started, and I'm like, you know what? I have to help others who are like me, and I also need to prevent you from getting into my nursing homes. And it's taking science, which is my thing, taking science and nutrition and fitness, putting it all together, and hey, you get to eat. How cool is that? And I still get to do a cookie. That's even better. So it's something to find balance that you are not yo-yoing anymore, that you're now focusing on health and getting stronger, and that outlook is the sky's the limit. And how cool is that?
That is cool. And I like that you said you lost 30 inches instead of pounds, because that's really more important.
I have no idea what I weigh. I have not been on a scale in years. And when I go to the doctor's office, I say, don't tell me what it is. Oh, but it's in kilograms. You forget I'm a pharmacist. I can do that math in a second. So I tell them, do not tell me what it is. I don't even look. I don't even look.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Carla. I appreciate it.
And I look forward to seeing people check out your program and just get healthier.
What it's all about. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.